Hello, everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Logan Blackman Show, and welcome to episode number 2 of the 2025 State of Iowa preview. And as you can probably tell by the title, this video will be going over the Iowa Hawkeyes upcoming season. And if you haven't already, make sure to check out our State of Iowa preview episode 1, which features the Iowa State Cyclones. This video will be coming out after the Iowa State versus Kansas State game, but that being said, this is video being recorded before the Iowa State-Kansas State game, which of course the first game of the college football season, which is just insane to think about. I don't know if I've fully grasped the fact that college football is back. And preseason football, it does its thing. You got the UFL, the Arena Football League, the Indoor Football League, you got other outlets for football, but nothing hits the same like week 0 and week 1 of the college football season. It doesn't matter the year, just of the college football season. I cannot be more excited. It is just an awesome feeling that football is finally back. All is right in the world now. All is right in the world. College football is back. The NFL will be back soon. It's just a great time. Absolutely great time. And if you're an Iowa fan, this year feels a little bit different than some of the years in years past. It's not because of oh, this team's going to compete for a national championship or anything. This is a year where you feel this this weight lifted off your shoulders at the quarterback position. That is because Mark Gronowski transferred in from South Dakota State this offseason to provide some stability, some much needed stability at the quarterback position at Iowa. This is a position that's been a laughingstock of the college football world for the past however many years now. You look at names like Deacon Hill, Cade McNamara, Spencer Petras, where everybody's looking at Iowa and this team just can. This is where quarterbacks go to die, essentially. When Cade McNamara came into Iowa, he was fresh off not fresh off of, but 2 seasons prior, he was the quarterback for a Michigan team that dominated Iowa in the Big Ten championship game and made an appearance in the college football playoff semifinals. He had been a guy who had been around winning. I'm not sitting here and saying he was the main catalyst for that Michigan team to be as successful as what they were, because they had a really good running back room. They had an elite offensive line. They had 2 elite edge rushers in Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo. Daxton Hill was in the second year. This was a great Michigan team, but Michigan saw the writing on the wall that Cade McNamara, though he's not doing anything to lose you games, he's not necessarily galvanizing the team forward and putting them on his back to lead them to a victory. And they thought they could get that with someone like J.J. McCarthy, and Michigan was ultimately proven right as they went on to win a national championship game. We're not going to talk about the violations and stuff like that. We're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the quarterback position at this moment in time. But when Cade McNamara came in with that pedigree, yes, he lost the starting job to J.J. McCarthy. You can go well, he was hurt, but the writing was on the wall, really. They were splitting reps prior to the season starting, and then they alternated starts the first couple weeks of the season before J.J. McCarthy finally took over. But when McNamara came to Iowa, this was a guy oh my God, this is the stability that we have needed at the position for God knows how many years now. Iowa hasn't had a 2,000-plus yard passer in God knows how many years. We don't even go back to 3,000 yards passing. We're not even going to scratch that. We just need to get to 2,000 yards, and McNamara had some moments. You look at the Illinois State game last year. It's oh my God, this is what this offense can do. Cade McNamara, the play that I'll always remember, rolling out to the left right before the end of the third quarter and flipping it down the sideline. A little sidearm action was oh my God, this is Cade McNamara's here. Because remember last season, he hurt in the spring practice or something, or the stadium practice, then tore his knee up against Michigan State. So we never got a fully healthy McNamara. So when we got this fully healthy Cade McNamara and this new offense with Tim Lester, and after watching the Illinois State game, and yes, it's Illinois State. I know Iowa, 99 times out of 100, is going to beat the brakes off of Illinois State. But to see what he did there, and you're oh, maybe he can carry the momentum into the next game against Iowa State, and then he has a good first half, and then the second half, he throws the interception, and it's all gone. Everything that we did against Illinois State is gone. And then ever since that moment, it just went straight downhill. He ultimately, they said he got a concussion. He lost his starting job to Brennan Sullivan. Brennan Sullivan came in and did some good things, but he wasn't a consistent enough passer. He's a good athlete at the quarterback position. He was a football player. You remember the game against Northwestern where he's throwing blocks down the field? Your teammates love to see that, because one thing they want to see is a quarterback being more than a quarterback. They want you to prove that you're a football player because you're wearing the red jersey at practice, a lot of standing around, so people will jab you every once in a while about hey, you don't do shit at practice. So to see the quarterback be more than just a quarterback, that fires up the team. But Brennan Sullivan ultimately got hurt in the game against UCLA, and then we went to Jackson Stratton, who before the UCLA game was the 5th string quarterback and was the scout team linebacker because Iowa's other backups were also hurt. And Jackson Stratton went in there and I thought did all right, given the expectations, because expectations are everything here. He wasn't great, but given the expectation, I thought he played already. He has a freaking howitzer around. He zipped that ball in there every single time. I think this is a commendable thing against UCLA. They had 0 pre-snap penalties. I think that's a very important thing to note, that going into that, being the 5th string quarterback and having 0 pre-snap penalties, I think is impressive because cadence is important, and you got to win against Maryland. You got to win against Nebraska, and Iowa begged Nebraska to win that game, and Iowa was still able to come out on top there. But Mark Gronowski comes in with this massive, and yes, again, it's the FCS level, I know, but you come in with this massive, resume of like, he's won 2 national championships. He's won 2 MVPs in the national championship game. He won the Walter Payton Award, which is the Heisman for the FCS level. He won that award. South Dakota State, we talked about this in the quarterback preview video, has 4 conference titles since he was there, and he was there for 5 years. Do you want to know the only year they didn't win a conference championship? When he was hurt, and he was a true freshman starter at South Dakota State due to other injuries at the quarterback room, got a walk-off touchdown win against UNI, and then he'd go on to do all the other things that he did, and I just didn't think that this was a realistic option, and he's expected to be named the starting quarterback, like there was really a competition there, and there's been videos going around of like him rolling out to the right and throwing to Reese Vanderzee and some deep balls that he's had in there as well, that just gets you really excited and go like, if anybody's going to break the quarterback curse at the University of Iowa, it would be someone like Mark Gronowski, because South Dakota State didn't have any national titles before Mark Gronowski got there. He leaves there with 2. They had, I think, 6 conference titles now. They have 4 of them were with him. Like, he just is that he's the guy that you can attach the trailer to and he can pull you along. And Iowa's got some good pieces, but the main question, other than Gronowski, is how are they going to replace Caleb Johnson? Caleb Johnson was immense last year. One of the best running backs in all of college football. Was a 3rd-round draft pick to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's wearing the exact same uniform. He brought his uniform from Iowa over to Pittsburgh, and I'm intrigued to see how he does this year splitting reps with Jalen Warren, because Arthur Smith is going to go with the vet. Or going to go with the less sexy option, which is Jalen Warren. Jonnu Smith's going to go ballistic in Pittsburgh with Aaron Rodgers here. But that's beside the point. We'll get to an NFL preview here shortly. But Caleb Johnson he was everything. He was Iowa's entire offense. He played only a half against Illinois State. And again, it's only Illinois State. I know that. But to get over 100 yards in that game was just awesome. And that touchdown that he scored against Nebraska, that was him willing himself into the end zone. Like, Caleb Johnson was everything a part of this Iowa offense, and I think he benefited a lot from the zone blocking schemes that Tim Lester, the offensive coordinator, implemented this past year, and I'm intrigued to see how the likes of Kamari Moulton and Jazz Patterson and Washington as well, how they're able to not directly replace Caleb Johnson, but to give them an option to where they're not completely like, oh my God, this offense is completely lost without Caleb Johnson. Like, they're at least there to add a nice platoon system. I'm not sitting here going like they all need to rush for 1,000 yards or one of them needs to rush for 1,000 yards, but if they can get to like 850 or something like that, I can accept that because of what my expectations are at the quarterback position. I know Iowa doesn't have like an insane wealth of wide receivers, but Reese Vanderzee is good. Jacob Gill is good. Caden Wheatgen, Seth Williams. They brought in Phillips from Chattanooga this offseason as well. Addison Ostrenga at tight end. You got a very solid offensive liner there, namely Logan Jones at Jennings Dunker. Like, you've got some very good pieces with some high potential in this offense. It's just the question around the quarterback. And we saw what Tim Lester added to this offense when he got more control of the offense, what it started to look like. And Cade McNamara was not a guy that fit Tim Lester's style of offense. He was a guy that fit the I formation offense that they would run under Brian Ferentz in the previous eras of that as well. He's not an RPO quick read quarterback, and you could tell there were some struggles in there. When he's reading the linebacker, he's not pulling it and throwing it. The linebacker crashes, gets all bumbled. I don't think he threw with the laces one time his entire time at Iowa, but hey, Mark Gronowski is that dude, and I'm excited to see what he does. Big dude, strong arm, good athlete in there as well. Experience in ass loads. It's just a very exciting time that I haven't felt really on the opposite side of the ball in a long ass time. I really don't remember the last time I was this excited about an Iowa offense. The defensive side of the ball, it's a little, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm worried about the defense, because Phil Parker has my utmost trust. Phil Parker has so much skin in the game at this point to where I don't really care what happens. I will always trust Phil Parker. You're talking about arguably the best defensive coordinator in all of college football. And you can have different conversations in there because there's a lot of elite defenses in college football, but Phil Parker has just been there consistent figure for Iowa, constantly churning out elite players at the collegiate level. But this year, it's going to be one of his biggest tasks because there's a lot of players to replace. You're looking at Jamari Harris. You're looking at Sebastian Castro, Nick Jackson, Jay Higgins. You're also replacing players along the defensive line as well, like Y.A. Black's getting replaced, and Quinn Schulte and Deontay Craig. Like there's so many new pieces that come in on the defensive side of the ball. Now, Aaron Graves and Ethan Herkett, I'm really excited to see what those two this year. Aaron Graves, I think, had 6 sacks last year, but I think 3 of them were in that game against Illinois State where he just absolutely went ballistic. But I'm excited to see what those two do. And with Nick Jackson and Jay Higgins gone, that would cause some concern. But Iowa's done a really good job at constantly churning out good linebackers at the collegiate level to where you lose guys, but they're able to replace them like that. You get players like Carson Shire and Jaden Harrell and Jackson Rexroth in there as well. Like, you've still got good players to replace the guys left, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be a lot easier said than done to replace guys like Jay Higgins, like Nick Jackson. But I feel like I trust Phil Parker and his development, and I'm nervy, but not. The linebackers is one thing. The cornerbacks is where I'm the most nervous going into this upcoming season. Again, we talked about Jamari Harris being gone, but there were a couple games last year where Iowa just got the top taken off. You look at the game against Troy as one of those games where you're like, oh, you're playing a lower level FBS team. You really shouldn't have that many problems here. But Troy would take the top off the defense quite a few times in that game. And there's some clips that we talked about before where Mark Gronowski's hitting these receivers, but where's the corners? It's like you're excited for the offense, but why is the corner 10 yards behind Reese Vanderzee? What the hell happened here? So players like TJ Hall and Deshaun Lee, we're going to need to see them step up a little bit this year because there were a lot of moments where they got beat. And it was like, this shouldn't be this simple. And I'm going to need to see some things from Xavier Nwankpa as well at the safety position, who's got a shit ton of potential. Let's just get that consistency factor in there as well. And you got Cohen Entringer replacing Sebastian Castro, moving into that cast position. And Zach Lutber replacing Quinn Schulte. So you're replacing, again, a lot of key pieces on the defensive side of the ball. But again, I trust Phil Parker. Maybe we see a Rashad Godfrey get playing time this season. Because again, those corners are I'm a little scared. I'm a little scared, not going to lie. The special teams I have no issue with. Iowa has had an elite special teams unit for God knows how many years now. Caden Weetchen is one of the best returners in college football. Reese Dakin's one of the best punters in the Big Ten. Drew Stevens, one of the best kickers in the Big Ten. I have no issues with anything that Iowa does on the special teams department, but I'm excited about the offense, mostly because of Mark Gronowski and the offensive lines. I'm excited to see what they can do as well, and especially with how the running backs do behind said offensive line, and if they're able to do things that can limit the loss of Caleb Johnson. The defense is scary a little bit, but there's some key pieces in there like Herkett, Aaron Graves, Xavier Nwankpa. I'm excited to see what those guys, the more experienced players, do, and I'm excited to see how the linebacker core does and how the corners improve from last season. That's going to be a big tell to see how Iowa does, because there's a lot of different predictions surrounding Iowa football this upcoming season where I've seen some people go oh, they might win 5 games. I've seen other people say they might win 10 games. It's a weird season for Iowa because there's just a lot of question marks because of the new faces in there. But I trust what they've got going on right now. I mean, Iowa won 8 games last year with a combination, again, I'll repeat it, of Cade McNamara, Brendan Sullivan, and Jackson Stratton at quarterback. And they still won games despite their quarterback room. And Cade McNamara, I'm just hurt with how that whole situation went down. But yeah, Mark Gronowski, I'm excited for him. And looking at Iowa's schedule this year, starting off week 1, because they don't play week 0, obviously, they got Albany at home. And they finished 4-8 last year. And every single game that they lost, they failed to score more than 20 points. So if you hold this team to less than 20, there's a very good chance you win. Now, they got a new head coach in as well. Van Weber's taking over at quarterback, and they've lost some key pieces on defense. I don't know why I'm talking about this game too much, because if Iowa loses this game at night at Kinnick, there's going to be some serious problems here. So I'm going to have Iowa starting off 1-0, and we're going to get to the big game right here. And we talked about this game in the preview for Iowa State as well, obviously, because they play each other. And I don't remember if I said this before, but I am filming this before the Iowa State versus Kansas State game, so this could vary my prediction. If I waited till after the game, then I'd have a clearer head around it. But I wanted to get this out so I could, I don't know, just keep my prediction in there, if that makes any sense. Because what I said in the Iowa State preview is that if Iowa State beats Kansas State, I think Iowa State loses to Iowa. But if Iowa State loses to Kansas State, I think Iowa State beats Iowa. And given the fact that I feel like Kansas State will beat Iowa State this upcoming year, I do think that Iowa will lose to Iowa State in this upcoming game. And it's weird because Iowa hasn't lost to Iowa State in Jack Trice, in Ames since 2011. That was James Vandenberg at quarterback. That was Steele Jantz for Iowa State. Like, it's been a long-ass time since they've done that. And they've been alternating wins the past few seasons now. Like, Iowa State's won the last 2 in Kinnick. Iowa won I guess since 2011, but we're in these last few years, won the last game at Iowa State. So it's intriguing to see, like, them alternate. Like, if you're the road team, you're going to win. But I don't know. I think Iowa State, with Rocco Becht back at quarterback, with Moser still there as the OC, and yes, they've got some new faces at wide receiver, I think Iowa State is more, I don't know. As a fan, I never want to predict this, and I feel gross for saying it, but I do think in the bottom of my stomach that Iowa State will come away with a win here. So I am going to have Iowa start off 1-1 to kick off the season. And looking at the next game against UMass, remember when the SEC was talking about, like, all the other conferences if they would play an SEC schedule, they would not be in this college football playoff conversation. So Iowa went out of their way and scheduled a team that 2 SEC teams played this past season. One of those teams made the college football playoff in the form of Georgia, and they are playing UMass week 3. And I'll talk about that with the next game as well. But UMass, they were not a good team last year. They have a new head coach this year, and like we talked about, they played Missouri and Georgia this past year. They actually hosted Missouri, which was just a weird thing to see. But despite their 2-10 record, this team can put up points. Like, they registered 20 or more points in 9 of their games. They put up 21 on Georgia. They only failed to score less than 10 one time this past season. Like, this team, again, despite their record, they can put up points and cause some problems for the opposition, like we talked about with Georgia. Again, they scored 21 points on the Bulldogs in the back half of the season. So this team can make plays, but if you're scoring 20 or more points in 9 losses, or in 9 games last year, guess what? That means your defense is giving up a shit ton of points in their own right. So I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm scared of UMass. They do have some some questions going into the year, especially with the new head coach and all of that stuff. And they're in a conference this year, because remember, they were independent the past couple years, or however many years it's been. So I'm intrigued to see how they do there, but I am going to have Iowa at night again, getting back on the winning track and beating UMass at home to start the season off with a 2-1 record. And week 4 is at Rutgers, and this is just crazy to me that if you look at Iowa's first 4 games of the year, 3 of them are at night. And the only game that's not a night game or a primetime game is the Iowa State game, the only game where they play a top 25 team. Like, that feels weird. Like, Albany's an FCS school. UMass was a very bad team last year, and now they're going to Rutgers to play at night. So 3 games out of their first 4 are quote-unquote primetime games, but because the Iowa State game's on the big noon kickoff this year. But Rutgers is returning 9 starters on offense, though. Kyle Monangai, who rushed for over 12,000 yards last year, is one of the better running backs in the Big Ten. He's gone. He's with the Chicago Bears in the NFL. Ethan Kaliak-Manis is back at quarterback as well, he's just very inconsistent. Despite how much experience he has, he's not the most consistent quarterback in the world, so I think Iowa with Herkett and Graves can cause some problems for him in the backfield, especially not having someone like Kyle Monangai behind him. Now, they do have Antoine Raymond at running back, and they do have a solid offensive line, so maybe that could hold back a little bit of the pressure, but I think if you're able to get to Kaliak-Manis, you can cause him to turn the ball over a little bit. Now, on the defensive side for Rutgers, they ranked second to last in the Big Ten in regards to total defense. They were better against the pass than they were the run, but still, you're giving damn near 400 yards a game. Now, you're looking at like Jabone on the defensive side of the ball. Eric O'Neal is a transfer coming in this offseason. Those are arguably your 2 best players on that side of the ball, but I think Iowa, even though it's on the road, I do think Iowa has enough in this game to get a primetime dub over a Rutgers team that, though they're bringing back a decent amount of players on the offensive side of the ball, your best player's gone and your defense isn't very good. So I'm going to take the Iowa Hawkeyes to win again to start the season off with a 3-1 record. And the next game on this list is back at home at week 5 against Indiana on homecoming. Indiana was the Cinderella darling of college football this past season. Curt Cignetti and co. talked shit the entire freaking season, and guess what? They backed it up. Now, you can sit there and go like, hey, Indiana, they didn't really play anybody last year. It didn't really make as much sense to put them in the playoffs as against someone like Alabama or South Carolina or something like that. But I challenge you, if you said before the season that Indiana would have gone 11-2, I think you would have not believed me if I were to say that. And they beat the shit out of damn near everybody they played, barring Michigan and Ohio State and obviously Notre Dame. Like, the toughest teams they played, yeah. but they still put up a shit ton of points. They put up a ton of fun offensive games. Curtis Work was awesome last season. Elijah Surratt was awesome last year. And they're bringing in Fernando Mendoza from Cal, who is a clear upgrade, which is insane to think about given the season that Curtis Work had. Fernando Mendoza, in my opinion, and I don't really think this isn't like a hot take or anything. I think this is a very common take here, but he is a better quarterback than Curtis Work. And Curtis Work played all of last season pretty much with a torn ACL. So credit to him for that. That's what we talked about before, being more than a quarterback. But Fernando Mendoza brings an element of mobility that Curtis Work just didn't have. Plus, he has the size and he has the live arm, and I think he's an excellent addition to Indiana's offense. We talked about Elijah Surratt already, but Omar Cooper is back, and you got Brady, who transferred in from Cal this past season, played with Fernando Mendoza over there. So they're going to bring back a lot of very highly skilled individuals on this offensive side of the ball, which put up, like we talked about, a bunch of points last season. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Mikhail Kamara, one of the best edge rushers in the Big Ten, had 10 sacks this past season, transferred in from James Madison, like pretty much everybody else on the roster last season. And then speaking of transfer, you got Wheeler coming in on the defensive line, coming in from Western Michigan. You've also got Aiden Fisher and D'Angelo Pons on the defensive side of the ball as well. So Indiana, I don't know if they'll finish 11-2 again. I think that they bit off a little bit more they could chew with that one, but I'm sure they're going to be talking shit the entire time. So they might be one of the teams that disappoints this year. But again, I don't think a lot of people are really expecting them to be the same team that we saw last year, but they still got a bunch of talent on this roster. Curt Cignetti's going to have this thing firing, I think, at home against Iowa with the weapons, or on the road, against Iowa, with the weapons that they have. Like we talked about the issues that I have at the cornerback position in the secondary, I think Indiana will come into Iowa City on homecoming and come home away with the dub. So Iowa, second loss on the season to this point. And then week 6, you got to bye. And then week 7, you're going on the road for the Camp Randall Trophy and traveling up to Wisconsin to take on the Wisconsin Badgers. This Luke Fickell, this could be his last year at Wisconsin. I mean, they finished 7-6 his first year. They finished 5-7 last year. This is the third year with a third different quarterback. Billy Edwards Jr. transferring from Maryland. They brought in Tanner Mordecai the first year. That didn't work out. You brought in Tyler Van Dyke, and he got hurt before we could really tell if it was going to work or not. So now Billy Edwards comes in with some good numbers at random points throughout the season at Maryland. But again, we talk about consistency. He didn't really have that there. So I'm intrigued to see how he does at Wisconsin. And Tyway Walker, as we talked about the Iowa State preview, transfer over to Cincinnati. And you got Dylan Jones, who's a good young running back, and Anthony over at wide receiver is a solid receiver there. It's just Wisconsin's identity is pounding the rock, building up the offensive line and pounding the rock. But Luke Fickell's trying to implement this completely different style of offense, and I just don't know if it suits Wisconsin. It just doesn't feel right when I look at Wisconsin and see them doing all that stuff. But maybe Billy Edwards is the answer to this offense. So I guess we're going to have to see on the offensive side of the ball. But the defensive side of the ball, you're looking at players like Christian Allegrio and Preston Zachman, who's in the secondary, leading interception getter from this past season. Allegrio playing in the linebacker position, but I just don't think Wisconsin, this game kind of can go any direction because it's at Wisconsin. I know Iowa beat the absolute brakes off them in Kinnick last year, but this game's a very tough game. These two teams are very similar. It's like they have the similar, or had similar-ish identities for a while, and Iowa going up to Kinnick, or going up to Camp Randall, and I say the Camp Randall Trophy. I meant the Heartland Trophy. I think you all knew that, but I said it wrong at the beginning, but I'll correct myself now. But going up to Camp Randall Stadium against Wisconsin, though they're not, the same Wisconsin, it's still a tough atmosphere to go to. That being said, I am going to have the Hawkeyes coming away with a win, coming off the bye, fresh off a loss to Indiana. The bye week in there, I think, is big to prepare for Wisconsin. I think they're going to come home with a dub against the Badgers. And then week 8, you're back at home against the Penn State Nittany Lions, who are one of the favorites for the national championship this year. And I understand completely why. Yes, you lost players like Tyler Warren and Abdul Carter, who were absolutely massive for your team last year, but you brought back your running back tandem, who's arguably the best running back tandem in college football. You improved your receiving room. You brought in Pena over from Syracuse, who's had almost 1,000 yards last year, and Drew Aller has another year of development. And I'm a believer in Drew Aller, as you could tell by my preseason quarterback prospect rankings and all that stuff. Drew Aller has all the potential to be one of the best quarterbacks in college football. He's got the size, the arm strength. He's not like a plus athlete, but when he needs to make plays with his feet, he's not afraid to do that. And on the defensive side of the ball, this team had 20 interceptions and 16 forced fumbles this past season. You look at someone like Dennis Sutton on the defensive line, 8.5 sacks this past season. And the secondary, you got Harris and Wheatley, and you've got, and it's linebacker used to, their linebacking core is going to be solid as well. This is a really, really good Penn State team. And the question questions around this team are going to be, can they get over the hump? They do play Ohio State and Oregon this upcoming season as well. So are they able to get over the hump, have their revenge games against those teams that they lost to last year? Because again, this is a super solid team. This is a very talented team. And again, if Drew Aller takes a step that I'm expecting him to this year, there's no reason why this team can't compete, and not just compete, ultimately win a national title game. And though Kinnick Stadium's an insanely tough place to play, and Iowa's beaten Penn State at Kinnick Stadium before, I do think the Nittany Lions just have too much going for them on both sides of the ball, and I do think they're going to go into Kinnick and steal a dub away from the Hawkeyes. So this is Iowa's third loss on the season. And next on this list is Week 9 at home once again against Minnesota, another massive rivalry game in college football. I hate Minnesota. Minnesota is, if we're talking about like my least favorite college football teams, they might be my second least college football team. And we'll talk about my least favorite here in a little bit, but they got a new quarterback this year. Remember that we saw Max Brosmer go up to the NFL, and I thought he had some good plays last year. He wasn't like an elite quarterback or anything, but we talked about him in our pre-draft quarterback rankings. I thought he was solid. He has a very quick release, not like a hose for an arm, not a great athlete, but a very quick release, can fit the ball in very tight windows. So Drake Lindsey coming in is a really well-touted freshman quarterback for Minnesota, and there's a lot of expectations riding on him this year. And you got Darius Taylor still in the backfield, who was a big player for them last year, almost ran for 1,000 yards. And you brought in as well AJ Turner from Marshall, who ran for almost 900 yards last year. So you got a very good running back tandem in the backfield behind your young quarterback. Now, it could prove interesting. Your top two receivers from last season are gone, and you have 2 or 3 new transfers coming in along the offensive line. So the opposite side of the ball could be an interesting thing to watch because of PJ Fleck's love for running the football. And I think having that running back tandem could be huge for them, but we'll have to see how they fare along the offensive line, of course. And on the defensive side of the ball, Cody Linkenberg's gone, but Coy Parrish is kind of Minnesota's Cooper DeJean, I guess, because you'll see him line up on the offensive side of the ball. You'll see him obviously line up in the secondary as well. He was a specialist in the return game as well. Like, he is just an insanely gifted player. Wears every single hat on both sides of the ball pretty much. So he's a very dangerous player for Minnesota. You've also got Devin Easton and Anthony Smith along the defensive line. So Minnesota is going to be a good football team this year. It just depends on, again, how good the offensive line is, how well Drake Lindsey does in this offense as well, and how good the running backs are, because Coy Parrish is going to do his thing as well on both sides of the ball. So it's going to be intriguing to see how they do, but I'm going to have the Hawkeyes coming away with a W here, take home their second trophy. They didn't get the Cy Young trophy, but they got the Heartland trophy, and they're taking home the Floyd of Rosedale as well. And then you got a bye in Week 10. In the Week 11, you're hosting the Oregon Ducks. Now, this is a team, this was the last remaining undefeated team of the FBS level before they got absolutely blitzed by Ohio State in the Rose Bowl, but they lost some decent players along the opposite side of the ball, namely Dylan Gabriel, but you lost some of your top receivers as well, as Tez Johnson, Trayshawn Holden's gone as well. You lost your tight end as well in Ferguson, so how they replace him is going to be big. Now, Dante Moore has been learning in the system under Dylan Gabriel this past season. Formerly at UCLA, had a little bit of an interception problem while he was there. Split time with Ethan Garbers, had like 11 touchdowns, 9 picks or something like that his last time there. But he was a 5-star recruit there, so he's got the talent. We're just going to need to see how he does early. And this game against Iowa at Kinnick is going to be massive. Now, Noah Whittingham is a very good running back in his own right as well. But what's going to be intriguing for Dante Moore is the absence of Evan Stewart, who's one of the better receivers in college football. Had a knee injury he suffered a couple weeks ago, so his timetable is a huge question mark at this point in time. Now, you do have Kenyon Sadiq as your starting tight end, replaces Ferguson. Kenyon Sadiq made some big plays for Oregon last year as the tight end too. And other wide receivers, DeCorian Moore, the 5-star coming in here, who a lot of people are really excited about. Ran track and field in high school, set a record for the 4x200 with Caden Durham. Like, this is still without Evan Stewart and without some of the players they have, like Tez Johnson, like Trayshawn Holden. Jordan James has gone at the running back position, who was a 1,200-yard runner last year. So Noah Whittingham, how he does in that role as well. But the offensive line is back, and the defense, as long as Dan Lanning there is still going to be fantastic. Uiaga Lele still on defense. You brought in Dylan Dineman from Purdue in the secondary as well. So Oregon's still going to be a very good football team. But Dante Moore, in his first year as a starter at Oregon, coming into Kinnick Stadium, and I'm hoping and praying that this is a night game, could be dangerous. And Iowa is known to upset some big-time programs at Kinnick at night, even when they're not supposed to. Remember, they beat the brakes off Ohio State. We talked about beating Penn State before, beating Michigan. This is in Iowa's DNA under the Kirk Ferentz era, and Oregon, with all the hype that they have, and I don't think they're going to be a team that finishes undefeated again, not just because of this game, but because of other things as well. But Dante Moore, I'm intrigued to see how he does. They've got talented players. They're solid defensively. They got a great head coach, but I'm going to take the Hawkeyes. I can't explain it. It's a gut feeling. I'm going to take Iowa in this game of against Oregon. With them coming to town, I think it's going to be a little too much for Dante Moore. I'm going to take the Hawks over the Ducks in this one. And then week 12, they travel out west to LA to take on the USC Trojans. Lincoln Riley, we talked about last chances. This is Lincoln Riley's last chance as head coach at USC. The defense has not really been there. Now they brought in a new defensive coordinator. They did improve defensively from the previous year, so that's a steady, anything's better than zero, I guess, at this point. So we're going to need to see how USC's defense does. But Jaden Maeva, second year as a starter, replaced Miller Moss on the offside of the ball, and they have 9 starters returning on that side of the ball as well, so that's going to be fun to see from them. Zachariah Branch might be gone, but you got Jacoby Lane still there, and Mekhi Lemon. And so I'm excited to see what they do. And the running back's gone as well, but Eli Sanders, former Iowa State running back, is coming in to try and replace him. So if USC's defense keeps improving the way it does, and Jaden Maeva has that next step as what we usually see from Lincoln Riley-led quarterbacks. I mean, you look at what he did at Oklahoma, and you see what Jaden Maeva's potential was last season, the blips that we had with him. Maybe USC could do something big this upcoming season. And against Iowa, with Iowa traveling out west, they don't have the greatest history of doing so. I mean, we talked about Jackson Stratton against UCLA last year. Iowa, I don't think, in my brain anyways, thought that UCLA would win that game, especially given what we had seen from UCLA up to that point. So I think with Iowa, again, traveling out to LA, USC being an improved team on paper from what we saw last year, Jaden Maeva taking that next step, the defense being improved, I think it'll be a little too much for Iowa, and I am going to take USC on the road, especially coming off a massive win against Oregon. We talked about that with Iowa State beating Arizona State. Like, if you have that massive win and you're traveling on the road the next week, that makes it a little difficult to try and balance yourself again. So all the emotion that goes into beating Oregon, I think they might have a fall off against USC. So I'm going to have Iowa losing that game for loss number 4 on the season. Then the next week, week 13, is at home against Michigan State. We're talking about games that I didn't expect Iowa to lose. This was one of them. Michigan State was not a good football team this past season. Aiden Childs, I like Aiden Childs. He's got the talent to be a very, very good quarterback. Because again, that consistency factor that we talked about, threw too many interceptions last year, but he's a young quarterback, and Jonathan Smith brought him over from Oregon State, and we saw what Jonathan Smith did with the Beavers, trying to do that at Michigan State, and they finished 4-8 last year, which is not where they want to be. But again, they beat Iowa did not play good at all in that game. I think it was 32-20. It was a very disheartening feeling watching that game. So I'm hoping there's an improvement on that front. But there's Michigan State, I don't think is going to be as bad as what they were last year, especially if Aiden Childs, like we talked about Maeva, takes another step this season. Now you still do have Nick Marsh and Jake Velling on the opposite side of the ball at receiver and tight end, but the offensive line is not great. You bring in 4 new transfers, so maybe that's a vast improvement on what you had last year, but there's still going to be some question marks on the opposite side of the ball for them. But bringing in players like Elijah Tua-Tolliver at running back and Omar Kelly at wide receiver, I think are nice additions. And defensively, they weren't great last year, so I'm intrigued to see how they're able to bounce back from that, because again, they brought in a decent amount of transfers as well. But with this game being at Iowa, I don't think that Michigan State can pull the surprise card like they did last year. So I'm going to have the Hawkeyes win in the last home game of the season, which leads us into Black Friday on the road against Nebraska. The game where Nebraska stood in the back and had their hands behind their back and didn't shake Iowa's hands, and Iowa begged and pleaded for Nebraska to beat them, and they just couldn't do it. Dylan Raiola, Patrick Mahomes Jr. starts the season off in Kansas City, so we'll see how he's able to do that against Cincinnati. But Dylan Raiola back in the second year as a starter. The first half of last season felt completely different than what we saw the back half of last season from Dylan Raiola. Like in the month of September, he had 9 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. And every game after that combined, he had 4 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Like the drop-off was just ridiculous from Dylan Raiola, because again, the talent's there. I'm not going to sit here and act like Dylan Raiola is not a talented quarterback. I'm not going to do that. But just again, we keep talking about this word consistency. When you're as talented as him, you just got to rein it in, because you can't have that 9 touchdown, 2 interception ratio go to 4 and 9. That's not really what you want to see in your second year as a starter. And he did bring back 10 stars along the opposite side of the ball. Harburg, who was the backup quarterback last year, he moved over to tight end. You brought in some receivers as well from the transfer portal. Players like Dane Key from Kentucky and Isaiah Hunter from Cal. Like, those are 2 solid additions to the opposite side of the ball for Dylan Raiola to, again, like we talked about, take that next step in year 2. Now, replacing Ty Robinson on the defensive line is going to be a massive task for them, but they do have some good players in the secondary. They do have some solid linebacker pieces as well, and some people out there are expecting Nebraska to be one of those sleeper teams this upcoming season, but I can tell you right now, I do not have, after what I saw last year against Nebraska, where I talked about Iowa just didn't put anything out there saying that they wanted to win that game, and yet Nebraska still could not get it over the line in that one. I am going to take the Hawks in this one as well. So that means Iowa finished the season with an 8-4 record. Losses to Iowa State, Indiana, Penn State, and USC. The Iowa State game, I'm really 50-50 on because that game is a coin toss every freaking year. Again, I don't know what the result of the Kansas State-Iowa State game is, so that could change my perspective completely after I watch the game on Saturday, but you guys will all know by the time this video comes out, so let me know what happened down in the comments below. Let me know what your thoughts on Iowa's season are. What do you think about them being a quote-unquote surprise team? Are they going to be a disappointing team? Is Mark Gronowski going to get that 2,000-yard season, maybe even push for 3,000 yards? Like my limited expectations for Mark Gronowski, not limited, but I would love to see 2,500 yards, 20 touchdowns. That's what I would love to see. That I would pray for that kind of season from an Iowa quarterback. So I'm just hoping for something along those lines. I don't think he's somebody that would feel the burden of that kind of pressure going into a season of a team or a fan base that's just desperate for something at the quarterback position. If he's able to be that, there's no reason why Iowa can't be a dark horse playoff team. There's not a reason why Iowa can't push for a bit. I almost went too far. I'm not going to do that. But 8-4 is my record prediction at this point in time. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did not, I sincerely apologize. Try to be better next time. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. We will have the UNI season preview coming out on Thursday for you, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And yeah, make sure to check out all the links down in the description below. Make sure again to check out the Iowa State season preview, and I will see you guys later. Peace.